And to which my mother-in-law came in and said, "Oh, what time's kick-off?" I said, "Well, it's in an hour." She said, "Oh, we could make it, couldn't we?" Which I thought I would never have got that. I would never have got that response from football, because let's go and watch. And it's the point is, it's about it being more exciting and more going on and more goals, more action. And I think that's why so if it's good enough for my mother-in-law, there's got to be something in it for the kids.
Welcome to the Liverpool FA podcast. Our aim is to provide regular insight from a variety of experts to help you in your own football journey. We'll do it through interviews, roundtable discussions, and by linking to other resources to help support you. For more information about each episode, just tap the album art, which will provide you with more about our guests and links to further content.
In this episode, we're joined by Ian Bateman. Ian is one of the most supportive and genuine people you're ever likely to come across. He's had a huge impact on coaching and coach development across the northwest of England and beyond. Ian currently works as a youth coach educator for the FA and is heavily involved in the development of futsal in this country. We had a wide-ranging conversation about futsal, including his experiences from coaching in a World Cup final, and we also got into Ian's coaching journey and his involvement in grassroots football. If you listen to this and want to get more involved in futsal, then get in touch with your local county FA who can signpost you to local opportunities. And here in Liverpool, we have a very successful youth futsal league running out of Wavertree Tennis Centre on a Monday and Friday evening, and that's called Futsal for All UK. This one had more links to external sources in the show notes than any other episode I can remember, so keep an ear on things as Ian makes some really useful recommendations. So enjoy this one with Ian Bateman. Ian Bateman, welcome to Liverpool.
Thank you.
Good.
Nice journey in on my bike.
Yeah, familiar to millions in this part of the world. Do you get into the city much at the moment?
Not into Liverpool now. It's funny living Warren's halfway between Manchester and Liverpool, so it's a great spot, but not heading that way too often. I'm too busy all around the country. I think that's the problem at the moment.
For those listening, what's your current role at the moment, and what is it that's taking you out around the country?
Yeah, no, current role, look after the coach education for futsal. Basically, in a nutshell, that's involving, the way it's turning out is looking after sort of stuff within grassroots and in the pro game, generally focusing on boys working in the academy programme in the pro game, and then touching on the England programme as well, which is quite exciting. So that's the really nice bit of getting to do some coaching-y stuff and getting out there working with elite players. So that's covering from top to bottom, really. There's only two of us in the futsal department. There's me and Mike Scabala, who came in at the start of last year. So it's a bit of a tough gig in terms of, having said that, we've got a lot of support around us, so it's we're going in the right direction. So
what's the state of play with coach education in futsal at the moment then? Yeah,
no, we're kind of, it's a bit bizarre, although we're 50th in the world rankings in the game, and people and we are playing a little bit of catch up in terms of coach ed. I think we're getting recognised as one of the best in Europe for some of the materials that we've pulled together. So we've got a UEFA B course now, which we've had 80-90 people through. So that's been a massive step forward. Not many countries have run a UEFA B. We're one of the few English-speaking countries that have run one. So we've got levels 1 and 2 that feed into the B. Everything's aligning to the football courses that we have. So as there's been a bit of a rewrite on some of the football coach ed, we've gone through the same process. So everything aligns. And then there's no real surprises when people come on courses thinking it's any different, because quite clearly the structure should be the same. And it's been really interesting. So UEFA we get looked at by UEFA to see how the courses lie, and they've been really surprised. So when they've come to assess the B and to see where it fits, they the initial thing was flipping out, is this a pro licence we've come to, or is it a UEFA B? The quality of some of the work that the candidates have pulled together has been of that highest standard. And this was a guy that's been around football and futsal for 40, 50 years, and as a coach educator and a coach, and it knocked him off his feet, actually. So yeah, it's exciting.
So what's the process that you go through with UEFA then when they come out and Is this to kind of sanction it to say that, give it the rubber stamp? This is a UEFA B qualification.
Absolutely, yeah. They don't hand it out willy nilly. Yeah. Same with the football. They set criteria. So the criteria for the futsal B is the same as the football B. The only difference is the technical detail. So things around building environment, understanding practice, all the things that go on the fitness side of things, diet and nutrition, all that stuff that's in the football B goes in the futsal B. But then there's some differences in technical detail. So that's what we spend most of the time looking at. But UEFA will come to check that, one, we're covering the detail that they ask us to deliver, and then how we do that and get that message across. They do give you some movement in you choosing your delivery mechanism. So quite rightly, it's different in England than it is in Spain than it is in Finland. And then that's where we link with football massively, because we don't want to have a different process for futsal than what we do for football.
Yeah. So when did that UEFA B launch in futsal then?
We're on our third year of operation now. So we run one course out of SGP every year, which is kind of open access, so long you've got a futsal 2 and a football 2. And then we'll operate a 1 or 2 courses a year for people working in the pro game. So there's a lot more going on than people think. So there's a BTEC program run by there's probably about 40 clubs, pro clubs in the UK for 16 to 18 year olds who are training 2 or 3 times a week and have a weekly games program. So a lot of their staff now have got the B. So the quality of that program with the Football League Trust has gone a lot higher, and it looks interesting. A couple of weeks ago I went over to Sheffield to see their first years playing, and the lads had only been playing futsal for maybe 2 months, but it looked like a futsal game as opposed to a game of five-a-side, and futsal people will know quite clearly what I'm talking about, I think. But teams playing with quite a clear structure in possession and out of possession, dealing with the ball in a different way, having some good set pieces, having a real plan, and it looks like futsal. So I think the coach education bit is really driving that, because that initially 3 years ago it was seen, we did CPD for the Football League Trust, and it was different people coming on the course each year, and it was like they saw futsal as like a full-time, well, it gave them some full-time work to free him up to work in the evenings in the academy programme. And it was different faces coming 6 monthly, never mind seasonally, where now people are seeing the benefit of the game, falling in love with the game, and then it's the same lads coming year after year, and they're getting better and better, and yeah, we're finding good opportunities for them now.
Great, and I'm just conscious that we've dived right into the depths of futsal, and there may be some people who are listening in who maybe have never been exposed to the game or never even heard of what it is. So you mentioned five-a-side there. So what is futsal? What would be the differences between that and five-a-side for someone who's maybe not come across it before?
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's 5v5. It's played on a hard surface, not on grass, not on 3G. It's played on a smaller court, probably about 40 by 20 metres. It's got goals that are hockey-sized goals, so not your letterbox-shaped goals. It's played with a ball that has less bounce. So I think I know on the Advanced Youth Award we talk about constraints-based coaching. Well, actually, if we change the size area, the ball we're using, the numbers of players, the goals that we're using, well, actually, we're pretty much changing everything we possibly can. Yet we've still got an invasion game. The principles of being small-sided things are going to quicken up, but the constraints give us different technical outcomes than what we were getting in football. So just by using a different ball that doesn't bounce, it means the players control the ball differently. That's linked to the surface. Put the surface in, the ball travels quicker than a football. You get more passing, more short passing, more opportunity to control. When you're receiving the ball, you're receiving it in tight spaces, so you've got to deal with it in tight areas. And one of the rules are really simple, so there's no offside. The only rule really that there's any difference is once the keeper's played it out, it can't go back to him. So it means then you're dealing it in an underloaded situation. You're dealing 4v5 because you've not got your keeper. So the implication of that is you get more turns for the players. The players have got to deal 1v1. It's an absolute punch-up. It's not flicks and tricks. It's not dribbles. Forget that. It's about dealing with the ball 1v1 under pressure and trying to create overloads to get around your opponents. And that's the game. It's about movement, and it's a two-touch passing game.
And you mentioned about the keeper there. The keeper doesn't always play as a goalkeeper, do they? I mean, one of the frustrations that I have with our traditional model of five-a-side, and I play a small-sided game every now and then with some friends, and I tear my hair out because the keeper's locked into the little D area and the players can't go in there, and you get this situation where, in my opinion, it doesn't mirror the game. No. And we learn, it almost players learn different things. So I use the example of players got the ball towards the corner of the goal, and you've got players showing them towards goal because that's where the area is that they can't go in, rather than, so it kind of flies in the face of the principles of the game.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to go down a route of saying five-a-side's rubbish.
No, there's plenty of benefits, of course.
100%. And I think, you look at our culture, we like to fight, we like a punch-up, and we like smashing the ball really, really hard. And that's what you're going to get loads of, because the shape of the goals, shooting from outside the box. Let's understand what constraints we're getting from. And then when we've seen quite a bit in the Premier League, youngsters in the Premier League programmes playing in cages on 3G, and it looks quite different the week later when they come and play futsal. Understand about if you're playing to lines, you've got to look after the ball, and possession is everything. And as a defender, using the line as your best mate to force play, that's a tool that you've got, rather than just smashing them in the back and making them break the nose on the wall as they're hitting that. So it's quite a different concept altogether, and it's going to help. Well, I think we're getting some evidence that it's helping players, and the Premier League have seen that have included it in the EPPP for the games programme for the youngsters. When you're seeing it played at the highest level, it's going to be really handy. I think your point about the goalkeepers is really interesting. So Edison came out a couple of weeks ago and said about he played a lot of futsal as a kid. So when he was picking out 50-yard balls and actually landing it on the money, again, getting keepers to... The keepers are a key part of the game. They're 20% of the team rather than 9% of the team. In a typical game, they're having 50, 60 shots to save, as opposed to Champions League, it's probably about 6 or 7. They're getting loads more distributions. So Edison would be getting loads of opportunity to play forward, seeing, breaking 2 or 3 lines of defence, looking forwards to put it on the money for certain players. And he's said about using his feet. So if you can play as kind of like a fly keeper, if you like. So Kazakhstan in the Euros next week will be a threat because they have a keeper who's got magnificent feet, and they pretty much play with a fly keeper from the off. So they're getting chances to look after the ball with the feet, play forward, and also make the save. So, there's keepers. It's a game for keepers, not just for the outfield players as well.
I'm thinking back to my first experience of it. I think it was on some tutor training we were being exposed to. And this must have been about 10 years ago now, and I had a game of futsal and instantly thought, I've got to play this more. And at the time I was working as a football development officer over on the Isle of Man in the County FA there, and I remember picking up the phone to Pete Sturgis and saying, what have I got to do to get this going off the ground? And I was amazed by actually how many facilities were already at my disposal, and we quickly got an adult league for men and women going. And what really struck me was just how physical the game was. And fast forward about 2 or 3 years, and I found myself so far out of my depth. I joined Liverpool Futsal Club, and it was just as the National Futsal League was starting. Right. And I remember we drove through the snow playing an away game in Sheffield, and I came off the bench, and I don't think I've ever been so shattered in my life in such a short space of time. It's just, I don't think people that haven't played it appreciate just what a physical game it is. No,
the physical in a load of different ways. So again, Hungary will have a 6'3" guy up front called Droth, who's an absolute beast, and you look at him and you think, well, he's not a futsal player, but his feet are magnificent, strong as an ox, and you know, he will fight and scrap for half a metre of space. That's how he rolls, and there'll be a lot of countries like that. One of the other rules is it's unlimited rolling subs. So you go with a squad of 14, 2 keepers, leaves you with 12. So basically you could have 3 banks of 4 fellas going on court. And the tempo of the game is that if you're on, you know, you're looking at working in 3 or 4 minute blocks. If you're on court for more than that time, you just become ineffective, you make mistakes, and you have a negative impact. So you give the ball away, you're just not doing anything, you just can't cope. And that'll be how a lot of the teams in Euros will function. It's how we operate as an England team. And we've got the stats to back that up. We've got heat maps about when players are having a positive impact and a negative impact in a game. While, you know, they've probably got 2 minutes where they can have that impact and play at that tempo. And heart rate stats are through the roof. They're in the red zone. They're busting the gut. So they've got to. You don't have time to play yourself in. It's you're on and you're going, and that's how the game is. And kind of that. I think it suits our nature in this country to some extent, because we like working hard and we like running fast and running about. What we're not so good at is being prepared to share the load and understand we've got our bit to do, and then trust your mate to do the next bit. And you do actually need 12 players to do this, rather than you can't do it with 4.
So, So what's your involvement with the national squads at the moment then? So,
national squads, assistant coach with the national team, so helping Scoobs with his work. So we have the lads in once a fortnight, and then a game probably once every 2 months. We've just had the 4 Nations, which we won recently.
Yeah. That was up in Scotland, right?
Yeah, that was in Scotland. So, didn't win the second time run that. Good opportunity, but showed that we're sort of ahead of the game a little bit in terms of the other nations locally, which is good because we've probably got a bigger budget and we're spending more time on it. So we see the lads quite a lot. Committed bunch. Some of those lads are playing professional overseas now, which is really good.
Professional futsal, this is,
professional futsal, yeah. So a couple of lads playing in Italy, one playing in Spain. So that's a massive positive step for us. And then if not doing that, they are pretty much futsal specialists playing in the Super League. So that's a national league now that has fixtures weekly. And then on top of that, I'm head coach of the Partially Sighted team, which is something that was sort of my entry point into futsal. They had a terrific year last year, and it's again something that people probably haven't heard about, but it's won a European bronze and then topped that with a world silver just the way they did. They ended up with 2 tournaments in 6 months and ended up getting a world silver medal, which is a phenomenal achievement. Bearing in mind, you know, budget's smaller than a lot of the other countries they play with. You know, it's super competitive environment and unbelievable achievement for them. So we're competing. And last weekend, the deaf team, they play futsal as well. They beat the Swiss. Drew with Switzerland to qualify for sort of the finals of the European Deaf Championships. Switzerland are ranked 2 in the world. So again, in disability and futsal, we're picking teams off and that's no fluke, absolutely no fluke. So technically, we've got better. We, as coaches, we understand the game better, and we're beating futsal nations at futsal, which is an unbelievable achievement. I think it's a dangerous conversation, this, because I know I liken this to being on Take Me Out. That if it's bad enough talking about futsal, and that would probably get me about half my red lights making that funny noise. And then if I started talking about disability, football, futsal, then I'd probably get a total. I wouldn't have anyone to choose at the end of it, or them for choose me, or whatever way it works around. So it's a dangerous game, this, but I think it needs to be out there because there's a massive achievement that's being done, and we need to tell that story.
Yeah, I think the people that are listening to this podcast are thirsty just to hear about your experiences and about your knowledge and what's going on, just curious about what's going on. And obviously we'd love to hear about English teams bringing out or being successful.
Yeah, England being before this summit, it was funny, we got to the World Cup final in May, And at that point, that was the first team.
This was with
the Partials. Yep. And we had a chat in our sort of management group about, well, who do we phone here to get some advice about playing in a World Cup final? And on the basis that Sir Alfred died, there wasn't really many people we could call upon that were English. And I know the summer changed in terms of success for English teams. But at that point, there was nobody, and it really felt like breaking new ground.
So tell us the story about that then. Tell us the route and give us a little bit of background of what it's like to be a coach in a World Cup final.
Yeah, nice. It's different. I think the story about the lads is the big messages for me about success is keeping that group together. So I've been involved with the team for 8 years. We've got a captain that's got 140 odd caps, Steve Daly. Inspirational person, inspirational leader. He's a lot older. He's probably, well, he's 40 now. So he knows, and I know, and he's pretty much on his last legs. And we discussed that a lot. But around him, there's another group of young lads that's all come through. Youngest being 17, 18. Others that are kind of up to 25 who have banked a load of experience in World Cups and top tournaments. So they generally have a tournament once a year, but it's banking that experience. So for myself as a coach, banking the experience and going steadily from couldn't get out the group at the start, then we start getting out the group, then we get into semi-finals. Then for the first time we've managed to win a semi-final, which is again is a massive step. It's a huge barrier to overcome, sort of physically, mentally, and technically to get over. So we've managed to pick the other teams off. But I think it's when you're losing in the semi-final 2-0, you've gone 2-0 down in the first 10 minutes.
And this is against
Russia, who had potential to win the tournament. We're 2-0 down. We're on 5 fouls. So
explain that.
So 5 fouls. If you your 6th foul, 7th foul, 8th foul is a 10-metre penalty.
So it's a little bit like basketball in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then if you... and a 10-metre penalties are probably a 50-50 between your keeper saving it and the other team scoring. So to be in that situation, 2-0 down on 5 fouls in the first half, and you've got to have absolute belief in drawing upon situations that you've been in before about getting back into games. And I think part of it is... and the lads knew that we had a plan, and we stuck to the plan, and we knew we were fitter, we knew we were stronger, we knew we'd score towards the end of games or had enough in the tank. Fortunately enough, before half time we get back to 2-2, and that was having that absolute belief and reminding the players about what we stood for and what our super strengths were, rather than thinking, crikey, we're 2-0 down and our whole world's falling apart. It was, no, we just need to bide our time here and go again.
So what had you as a head coach done in preceding that you knew when you were 2-0 down on 5 fouls in the first half in a semi-final against Russia, you were comfortable that the players had the ability to bring that back? Yeah,
see, futsal, it ebbs and flows a lot quicker than football, so you can change your tactics. You'll change it maybe 4, 5, 6 times in a half and change your personnel. One, there were certain lads I probably knew wanted on court to deal with the situation because they had probably more experience about it. We had a different way of playing, so rather than going pressing and keeping going, we were a little bit more cautious. We'd go and play a little bit deeper and draw the team on and go and pick people off. But this was something we talked about beforehand. Not overly, I think there's a fine balance between talking through and scaring players to death, but actually having reassurance, look, there's no drama here, we've still got 3/4 of the game to go, we can deal with this and we'll get back in the game eventually. And yeah, you do need a bit of magic, and that's what we got, and that got us back in the game. But a key part was, although in your head you're looking at the game thinking, crikey, this is not going away plan, I think as a coach sometimes you just got to put a real actor's face on and tell a blatant lie that you're just thinking, yeah, let's trust you here, lads. Trust is the wrong word, because the trust was always there, but to give the lads the reassurance that they needed to go, look, remind them about what they're good at and where they're going, but although inside your stomach's going, everything seems to be going wrong, you've got to be the calmest man in the world to put some sense and order into the situation. So what you can have a timeout in futsal, take sting out the game. That was the first thing we did. But then speaking to the lads on the bench before they went on. So although the coaching team had to really earn the corn, because although you're watching the game, the assistant coach is making sure that the lads are absolutely clear on strategy, that don't change the plan, stick to what we're doing, and give them a reassurance that we'll get back in the game and we'll be fine.
Yeah. So that you said about you wanted to get those players on court, and you've only got say up to 4 minutes of court time per player, and just remind us how long's
Yeah, so the game's 20 minutes each way, but it's a stop clock.
Yeah, it's a real time.
It's a real time. You're probably 35 minutes.
So you've got you want to get those key players onto the court, but you've only got a limited amount of time that they're able to be effective on court. When they come off, I can imagine how chaotic it might be in that environment. When they come off, what's the sort of recovery time before you can get them back on again?
Yeah, so it is chaos. And we do a lot of work, especially with the mainstream lads, because they will. So it's slightly different. With the partials, we generally have two lots of 4 that go on. So you're on for 3 minutes, you're off for 3 minutes. So you've got a pretty much 50-50 rate in terms of recovery and work. The mainstream lads a little bit different. You've got more lads on the bench to choose from. So you're pretty much off double the amount of time that you're on. As a general rule, although quite often we might just work with 2 banks with other lads floating in. So one, you don't want them to burn out mentally, so you want them to relax and refocus. So they've got to get the breath back, get a drink on board, gather themselves, because what you want when they go back on, you want them back at full tilt. So the recovery rates are quick. What you find with futsal players is the recovery rates is quicker than footballers. That's fairly proven. So then they recover quicker and then they go again. So on a graph of heart rates, there's real spikes and lines where the recovery is happening really quick. Yeah, where it drops quickly. So you want them to be calm, you want them to be focused, but then when they get on there, you want them to be champing at the bit and focused and ready to go.
So what happened then? So you tune it down. You put your mask on.
Put the mask on. Steve Lady pulled out a unbelievable piece of skill, and to get us back in the game and just turn the tide. And there's a lot of momentum in futsal. So once the floodgates open, you can really gather a bit of steam. We got back to 2-2 by half time. And then within sort of 5 minutes of the second half, we're out the blocks quick and we're 4-2 up. Which then you're into a whole different situation about, if we got, the feeling was always if we get to 3 in front, we're home and hosed. 2's always a bit twitchy. Hit 5 fouls again, which again you could go, is that a problem? Well, we play a high pressing game, which you're kind of going to draw that. So the last 10 minutes we had to see out with a 2-goal advantage. Super strength is that we can defend half court, and we've done this in Europe, in the European Championships, where
and half court is
getting to defending in your own half, dropping off really, really quick, and then having an outstanding keeper that you can trust your life with, and lads knowing full well that we're going to invite shots, but we'll deal with it, and we'll deal with the pressure. And we scraped. So we got over the line 4-3. Unbelievable. But again, so going back to remind the lads of the super strength about playing half court, that came from in the Euros. We ended up in a situation where we'd had a couple of lads sent off in a game. Nothing, handball and a keeper coming out of the area, so tough decisions to take. And a couple of injuries, meaning we had pretty much one sub to go and play Ukraine, who are the world champions, a keeper that had never played VI futsal in their life before, and needing to get at least a draw against the world champions in a group game. Otherwise, we weren't going to win anything. And 5 outfield lads ground it out. Wow. Which was, so you draw in that, and when I say about experience, that's what you draw upon. So then you've got a 0-0 against Ukraine, who are world champions, European champions. You go and then in your semi-final, lads, we've done this against the world champions. Why can't we do it against Russia? Let's go. And the belief was there, and the lads went and delivered. And I think that's the bit you need to go through some adversity, and to when it really comes to crunch time, it gets you over the line. I don't think if we'd had the experience in the Euros 6 months before, whether we'd got over the line against Russia, I think we'd have crumbled. But go back to being English, resilience, digging deep, work rate, having that brotherhood amongst your group. Got us over. Russia didn't have that tightness of the group, and they didn't have the technical ability to be able to break us down. Although you could argue they had more technical ability than us, but what's wrong with that? If we've got a way of playing, let's be proud of that. And we got the silver medal, and they didn't.
Yeah. So what was the gap then between the semis and the final?
A day. Yeah. So what you find players do recover. The intensity is a little bit different. So the load is a little bit lower. Intensity is high, but load's lower, if that makes sense, because you full tilt, but for shorter periods. So players have to recover. This is where you need a team of experts around you, doctors, physios, to get your recovery right. So to be fair to the people, we had a doctor who actually went away with the rugby league England team in the World Cup in the summer. So we'd got real experts around us. They'd sourced the best health club you could ever find. How we did it, I don't know, but it meant we had the best recovery, and then we were ready to go for the final. Again, didn't really have anything to lose in the final, because Ukraine. Again, a lot comes down to budgets. Ukraine had been together for 30 days pre-tournament, so they take it quite serious. They have a lot of time together. They play in the same team. They train in the same team. A lot of them work at a university all together, so they're together pretty much weekly, if not daily. We had, I think, 5 day camps to get ourselves ready for this in a 6-month block. So compare that like for like. There's no way we should be anywhere near them. It was we ended up losing 2-0, but we had chances to get our nose in front, and then that would have been really interesting to see if we could park the bus again. But they know, Ukraine know we're on their case, and with a little bit more, we've got a strategy to deal with them. We just want to try and implement that strategy now to go and have another go and see if we can get a gold.
So what's the next steps tournament-wise for that squad then? Don't
know, probably we're looking at, hopefully, if we could host something in this country at the end of the year. There's going to be a Euros this year, that's the next challenge.
Yeah. And have you qualified for that already?
Yeah, it's just a straight to the finals. There's only probably about 12 nations really that take things seriously. But again, the difference between the danger is you get a silver one year, you could come 5th the next time. That's what happened to France in the last tournament. So it's you've got to win those single goal games, or the games where there's 1 goal difference. So the margin for error is super tight.
Is that career highlight?
Do you know what? There was a moment at the semi-final that, really, because it's 8 years' work going into 8 years' work just came to fruition, and we couldn't have got it out. It was where we're at, I think, if we're brutally honest. And the lads know that, and it's just a really, really good bunch of lads that have it tough on a daily basis. But then they come together for a week and they're England players, and they're really, really proud.
Because these guys aren't full-time athletes at the end of the day, are they?
It's a tough. They're not full-time athletes. In their attitude towards, they're professional in their attitude when the time comes. So, and I'd say this same with the senior, with the mainstream lads. Their attitude to everything they do is really, really professional, but don't get paid. And there's not many England squads, so take out the. You can take out a lot of the women's squads now. Take out from the 17s upwards within the England programme. There's not many people in the England programme that are amateurs, and there's a difference with those types of players, because I think it's like I think it's similar to coaches working in amateur clubs. It's a different mentality when you're not being paid to do something. You're doing it because you want to do it, and I think that's a really powerful thing. So if people are doing it because they want to be there and giving up the time to do it, then that's a really good starting point. Yeah. I think then it's our duty as staff to help them on their way. So they have to turn up, and the body fat is around about that 10% mark. Otherwise, we ain't going to be able to compete. And so the training away from the group, they've got to get on and do that. And I've got no, and the same with the seniors. I've got no doubt whatsoever that when they're away, they're eating the right stuff. They are doing the right stuff to get them as fit as they possibly can, because that's a great starting point. Then we have to give them the technical bit and the tactical bit that's going to get us over the line, and maximise that time together. And it's probably more powerful because there's going to be a real argument in clubs at the moment where everything's done for players, and we're probably breeding a culture where, you know, kids are picked up from here, they're fed, they all go to school together, you know, they're taken away from their homes and they live in the same place, everything's put on a plate. We might not be doing them too many favours, you know, and I think with the amateur athletes that's really the same. I've seen it quite a lot with my daughter's involved with dance. She's a dancer, yeah. And she's had her first contract this year. So even through their training, they do their own nutrition, they do their own strength and conditioning. Class starts at 9 o'clock, so you get your own transport to get to class. The teacher walks in at 9 o'clock, you've done your own warm-up, and at 9 o'clock you are taught, and you do your dance work and you do your technical work with them, and then at 11 o'clock you do your own cool down, you feed yourself, and you get ready for your session 2 in the afternoon. And that's how the dancing world works. And then even in a full-time company, yeah, they get a little bit more physio support. They get a gym membership paid for them, but actually they don't have a program written for them. They know what they've got to do. Class, or if they're learning a new piece for a different production, you know, the times are quite set. It's double sessions. If you're dancing at one place at one, and then you train in somewhere different in the afternoon, you get the bus or you get your bike and you get on your bike and you meet at the next place. It's a different mentality, and there's a lot to be learned from that. I think we've gone too far down looking after people too much and doing stuff for them, and the dance culture is brilliant. And to be fair, we were over at Christmas, and they're in a production. Bear in mind, it was a full house. It was a black tie do. It's in a big theatre. There's 1,000 people in the theatre. So this is a professional dance company, and one of the dancers or one of the performers is sleeping on a couch on someone's house the night before, because they're travelling in from another country, and that's how they roll. But they look after each other and take it. Not saying that's right for professional sport. But it shows the difference in the culture about actually doing what needs to be done, and I think we're definitely missing some of that in football at the moment.
So what specifics have you taken or applied from your learnings about the dance culture into your role as a national head coach?
Yeah, seeing the passion that the people have for what they do, and I think you see that with I think at top level you do see that in footballers. People are passionate, and coaches. People are passionate about what they're doing, and they're committed to it, and they go in time and time again. They do go above and beyond. I think it's the bit about taking responsibility for yourself and your own learning. And that if if they don't do the strength and conditioning program as a dancer, well, you won't get selected you won't get the work. You've got to go and find your own work. You probably don't have an agent. You go to your auditions, you sort your auditions out, you find your way, and you're not relying on other people. So the amount of times you chat to people that have been in football and been in a program, and to get released at 16, released at 18, they don't really realise what the opportunity is that they've got at the time. So there'll be loads of players now released at under 21 and under 23, and then when they get that bad decision, have they got anything in the locker to bounce back and go and do the next bit? And I think the dancing world is different, because you're going to get knockbacks, and you have to be super resilient to keep going. Do your audition, probably get told no, not this today, and then you go to your next one and you keep going and going and going, and you don't stop. Because a lot of it's kind of people's opinion about you anyway. If someone wants a different shape or a different size or a different haircut, you might just be waiting for that moment before you get in and get your chance. But you've got to be ready for that battle that comes, and maybe support yourself with another career while you're still trying to chase that one. And I think it's resilience. I think there's a massive attention to detail as individuals. So it worries me a little bit when I'm in clubs and they say, oh, well, we've done all the clipping for them so they can watch their own clips, and then the players can't be bothered watching the clips. Whoa, hold on. You know, should we not be at a point where, you know, the players are finishing at lunchtime? Can they not clip their own stuff? Should they not be searching for that extra 2% that they might be able to get through clipping their own work? If they have to clip it, or just watch it, make notes about it. Do I see players rocking up with notebooks and taking down the thought? I don't know. I don't know. Or is that just being seen as busy? I think the linkage with the it's kind of non-professional, but real people that act professionally. There's power. There's absolute power, but there's a passion about people that's doing stuff.
Casting my mind, but we came across each other, I want to say about 8 or 9 years ago now, when you were doing the role that I'm doing across the Northwest. Futsal wasn't what you intended to get into, I'm guessing, at the time. No,
it's funny. You end up doing stuff that I think my whole career has gone a little bit down that route, where you end up doing stuff that you didn't really anticipate yourself doing. But that's been quite good. So, I mean, if I go right back, I ended up doing. I worked for Bobby Charlton for 15 years, doing soccer schools, and we did stuff for Man United, which stayed current for quite a long time. So
that was your first coaching
role? First coaching job, yeah. And again, that came through a guy called Tony Whelan, who works at Man United, who just happened to take the team that I play for on a Sunday. Didn't coach. He just took his coaching at Platt Lane in Manchester. Didn't run the team, but was the coach on a Thursday night. And Tony had 1 week's coaching work. He heard I was doing my prelim at the time, offered us a week's coaching work, and I think he saw within the first 10. He said, within the first hour, he'd clocked what I was doing and said, "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" I went, "Yeah, it's brilliant."
What were you doing?
What was I doing? I'd got a group of 6 or 7 year olds. I'd probably spent most of the time doing up the laces. It wasn't what was dealt with on the prelim by any stretch of the imagination. But I'd got 18 kids. It was a bright sunny day. I was in the middle of a field in Timperley with Tony, and it was great. I didn't know what was great. It was just great. But I knew, previous to that, I'd just come back. I'd gone a year's travelling around Australia. And then before that, I'd worked in a bank. So I'd left school, worked in a bank, which was just, for me, was the wrong thing to do. Being indoors, counting money, I suppose that was all right, but just doing figures, looking at checks, it was a struggle. So all kept me used to keep me going was like playing at the weekend and training in midweek. So to come out and do this job where actually I was being paid for doing something I enjoyed was totally novel. And Tony was great. He said, well, I know people at Bobby Charlton's. Do you want me to give them a ring? They generally have work this time of year, and made the call for me. And the following week, I went to go and work for a week at Bobby's, and ended up 15 years later as managing director, and so went T-boy to MD. That was pretty much the story over a 15-year period, which was unbelievable, and that opened up a load of other stuff. So it opened up for me to work part-time at Bolton. Ended up being sort of 10 years part-time and full-time at Bolton.
In the academy?
Yeah. Again, it's funny how things work. So I worked part-time, and then things were going really busy with Bobby Charlton's, so I had to pack in Bolton, and then Chris Sully phoned us out in the blue just to see if I'd be interested in doing some that they'd got a role and would have been interested in doing some stuff around recruitment, which wasn't my bag, but he knew the amateur, the non-league grassrootsy type scene. Saw something in me, like Tony had seen something in me, and gave me that opportunity. So I packed up Bobby's and went to Bolton for 5 years. Did recruitment, but ended up as sort of assistant academy manager, which was a great opportunity. I suppose at the moment it'd be like a lead phase coach. That's in new money. That's probably what it looked like. But it looked after recruitment. It looked after sort of the technical stuff at the time.
So what do you reckon it was that Tony and Chris saw in you then?
I've just been mad about football since I can still remember now my first time playing on the park with the bigger lads. That's clear in my mind. Playing for my first game for my school team, clear in my mind, and being so excited I couldn't eat my lunch. And going to my first game, it's watching City play, clear as absolute crystal clear. And that's just always been in me. And that's all I ever did. I just kicked a ball, and in the summer might have dabbled with cricket a little bit, but there was still a ball in the bag that would come out. And I think they've just seen an enthusiasm. Look, I don't think for 1 minute I'm the best coach by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm just, I've as I've got older, I guess I've thought quite deeply about what I'm doing and why I do what I do. And I think Tony said one. He said, look, I'll make the phone call for you. He says, but football's a really small world. He said, keep your nose clean and work your socks off. And he said, and I think what he was saying was don't let him down, because he was recommending me. And that's always sort of sat at the back of my mind. I hope I've never let him down, because that'd have been a shocker. And because he gave me the chance. So yeah. And work hard, and I think there's a work ethic thing that was driven into me from my parents, particularly from my mum, and well, my dad as well. But you worked your socks off. I wasn't the best at school, but then just before my O levels, sort of smashed my knee to pieces, and then got my head into my books and come out with these stunning grades, which no one was even thinking about. But that told me about working hard and getting stuck into stuff that you can pretty much do what you want to do. So yeah, I think if you what did they see in me? I don't know. I was probably all right around people. Hopefully, I think they probably saw that they could trust me. I think that was, and you sometimes just need people that's going to roll up the sleeves and do a decent job, and stick to the plan. And I think that's probably what I've done. But it's funny because I guess going back to the first thing, you don't know. I didn't think I would end up in a professional club environment like I did at Bolton. But then. So yeah, that came kind of, that was a real out the blue. But to go there was when you saw what Sam was doing with it, all the analysis and psychology work that was coming in with the first team was filtering into the academy side, and that's what really excited me. And it was unique. No, the clubs weren't doing it. The club even had its own PMA at the time, so log in all the players' details, log in fitness stats, log in session plans, log in match reports, and feeding that back to players.
PMA would be
PMA. So that's what the in the EPPP, all the clubs fill out details about sessions and matches, and so you've got a log basically of what players are doing throughout their life, and they can take that with them, which is a great piece of kit. And in the EPPP, that's probably been in about 5 years. Bolton, we had it 14, 15 years ago, first team used it, and we were implementing that with the youth team. So we were real trailblazers. And again, did we sing and dance about it? No, we didn't. Should we have done? Looking back, possibly we should. But I think that might have been something that Chris wanted. He wanted people that would see things a little bit differently and were prepared to implement them and have a go with stuff and challenge stuff, because we challenged a lot of stuff at Bobby Charlton's about the coach Ed at the time was very it was typical. Tutor stood there with a clipboard ticking his list off, and you tick the bits, you got your ticket, which I still think that there's a place for that, because I think there was a reason why that happened. But there was a perception that that's how you went and coached, which I think is totally wrong. What we'd come up with, Bob, is that actually people need to come here to enjoy themselves. So to pay our mortgage, we had to get kids coming next year or next week. So the best way to do that is make sure they enjoy it. So their enjoyment was, well, let's play lots of games, let's do loads of opposed stuff, let's have loads of shooting. We designed our own equipment, these things, mannequins. We had our own mannequins made from a guy in Sheffield in and free kick walls with players painted on it. When you couldn't buy them off the internet, we went and found them and built them. We designed mini pitches, which you just sort of hammered into the ground, which were like a fenced off area where the ball never went out of play, but it gave you 3v3 and 4v4 games and different sized pitches. Kids loved it. Kids absolutely loved it. But it was about seeing things a little bit differently and then going out and doing it and then taking that to the marketplace and having a go with it and then seeing if it worked, and some of it worked and some of it had to go back to. But if you're making your own mannequins, you live in you won at the end after 5 or 6 years when Man United wants to copy the product. It was quite different than when we started at the start of it. But having the idea and then running with something, even though knowing that something's not going to be quite right, but being willing to chat through with other people to go, well, how do we make it better? What we're going to tweak here, what we're going to change. You've just got to go with your ideas and your thoughts and trust yourself. So again, you go to Bolton, and it was quite apparent that bringing kids in for 6 weeks was wrong. So in the first week, I've gone and presented to the local league about taking players out and supporting them.
So this is part of your role as the head of recruitment?
Head of recruitment, yeah. I was just say, look, we're here to help and support. And I literally got chased out of the building. You don't support, you take the kids out, you send them back and they're in a bad place. And quite clearly, after you've done the second and the third league visit, and each league's saying the same thing, that message was wrong. So you've got to come up with a solution to fix that. So we just got partner clubs and never took lads out for 6 weeks. We had shadow groups, which now seem to be the done thing nearly every club in the country. Not saying that it was just thinking different, and I think there was probably a load of other people thinking the same sort of thing. Not taking lads out of Bolton clubs if they were, unless it was at the start of the season. So you let them play the football, let them have the finals, let them, and then if we were really sure about a player, we'd sign them. The other little things we looked at the club was taking. We were probably 6th or 7th pick in terms of kids would go to City, United, Everton, Liverpool. Blackburn were ahead of us, Crewe were ahead of us, Preston really were ahead of us. So writing off the September to Christmas birthdays and the scouts went and scoured the place for January onwards. If they bought us in May to August, it was like we were rubbing our hands. And now
why would you be rubbing your hands?
Just because they'd been missed. There was. Yeah, we knew, or we didn't know, that was the problem. But the feeling was that actually if we give those lads time, then they might come through at the end. And what the scouts initially thought they were seeing wasn't necessarily what they were seeing. So they would get drawn to fittest, quickest, fastest, strongest, as opposed to, do we know who's going to be fittest, fastest, strongest when they're 18? Because it was quite different than looking at a 14-year-old. And we got some immediate success with that, of getting lads. So Kyle Bartley would always be the example that we took from Denton at under 12s to being an England player at 15, April birthday. And the club was with Kevin Nolan, I think he was in April and May. Liverpool released him. Joey O'Brien was a later one. Aaron Moy's different, but again, he was a late birthday in terms of his Australian birthday, because they go January to December. I think he was in October, November. So there's stories behind all of them, and some real success that we had at the time, which again isn't on people's radar, but there was reasons why what we did. And then looking back now, 10 years later, you can go, "Oof, that worked," or "This didn't work," and then you've got the stories to back it up.
Yeah, so where did you actually go looking for these younger birthdays then? I know you've told this story before and I've heard it on course.
Yeah, we kind of looked everywhere for the younger ones, but you didn't look in the top league. Quite often you'd look in the second division of the Warrington under-7s league, or even the third division of the Warrington league. But to get a proper picture, the scouts had to know the birthdays of the kids. And had to know something about what they were looking for rather than just looking at a game, because you're not seeing the full picture. We then had to educate the coaches about being a little bit more patient and understanding the bigger picture. This was before youth mods. This is
before really. I'm sure there was relative age effect research out there, but maybe not known to the extent popular that it is now.
Yeah, and it's quite scary. So I remember they used to have regional Centre of Excellence meetings, and Craig Simmons was at the first one I ever attended. It was at Uni of Chester, and he stood and talked about relative age effect, and I'd never heard about this, and I thought, flipping out, this is insane. What's going on? Why aren't people doing anything about it? So 5 years later, when I got a chance to affect it, I made sure that it affected it. And I think there's there's a lot of information and stuff out there, which is okay, but then sometimes you've got to pick some messages and go, yeah, I need to do something about this. So that's what we did at the club. Again, at the same time, as my own lads came, sort of did his football, so he's sort of 19 now, so having taken him through his junior football programme, he was a September.
Planned that well, didn't you?
Well, I did and I didn't. So he's a September, but a late developer physically. And I knew I was a late developer physically. So it was interesting plotting his progress, that he was good in some bits but didn't have the legs to cover the ground. But again, we implemented the stuff at Crossfields at the time about, coaches having a bit of a more balanced opinion, understanding that the fifth team in the under 8s age group, when we looked at it, were all. So we had to pick on ability because the league said you had to grade your kids according to your teams, which again at the time I wasn't sure about, but there's pros and cons either way, and I think I understand those pros and cons better now. But yeah, understanding that the 5th team were all kind of May to August birthdays. Was it a surprise? No. And was the A team full of Septembers and October birthdays? Yeah. And did they win the cup at 7s and 8s? Yeah. Did they get overtaken at 13, 14? Yeah. It doesn't surprise me. It was just as so they were biggest, fastest, strongest. Then as they got caught up, they got overtaken. Some of them hung in to be playing at a really good standard, and then others have drifted away. And then obviously we could talk all day about the complexities of taking them through that struggle and growth spurts and all the rest of it. That's probably for another day.
Yeah.
But it's good going through that process and understanding and seeing where they've ended up. But I think, I don't know, as you get older and greyer, and so I've been through that process now probably 3 or 4 times with players, or seeing groups of players come through and seeing who makes it and who doesn't make it, and it's that gives you a little, I don't know, you become a little bit more comfy with yourself about knowing what's probably going to work and what isn't going to work. So rather than working things out for the first time, you call in on a little bit of experience now, which can be quite handy.
I think the story that you mentioned there about the late developers is a familiar one to many. I would say, from my own experience, the boys that I'm working with now, some of them are 14, and I've had the opportunity to work with them since they were 9 years old, and I honestly say it's probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And seeing that progress and seeing how volatile those changes can be as they go throughout that journey, but like you say, it's probably one that we could spend hours on and another day.
We had the Advanced Youth Award was in at the weekend, and they had under 15s from 3 clubs: Ipswich, Cat 1, Peterborough, and Oxford, who were probably Cat 2 or 3. And there was an absolute mix of sizes. It was the physical corner, and I ended up reffing a couple of 11-a-side games. And it was really, really hard. So they had some 6'3" centre forwards and centre halves. They had some lads that were probably weren't even 5 foot, but it was men against boys. And trying to ref that, I couldn't. It was really difficult. About even the little lad trying to nick a ball, but actually the big lad sticks his backside into him and he bounces off. Was that a foul? Well, no, it's not. And incredible. But players with different strengths and weaknesses, and that was just technically, never mind looking at what must have been going on in their heads and everything else. It's a massive is it an issue? I don't know. It's complex, and this is the real problem. It's so complex on so many levels. It's trying to find talent and develop talent is really tough. I think in grassroots just giving lads opportunity. The one thing that Drops always remembers is the team that was the 5th team. Were they still playing when they were under 16s? And a lot of those lads were. And why? And when they went to 11v11, which was probably at that point under 11s, would have been, you jumped up at under 11s at that time. They probably went 11s, 12s, 13s without winning a game. The moment when they won the first game was just, that would probably be a career highlight as well, or hearing that story. But Paul Smalley, who's a FA mentor,
chairman of the club at the time.
He had a waiting list of players wanting to join him at under 16s and 15s because of the environment he created. He's a teacher trainer by trade, understood what was going on, created the right place for him, and that was a different environment than what teams playing in the town team, the players playing in the town team would be facing, or teams playing in the Premier League or the top league. So it was different, but Paul understood those kids, and create the environment and they'll come. That's what Paul did, and really, really powerful. And those lads, I bet loads of them are still playing at some sort of level, whether it's maybe not 11v11, but they'll still be having a football activity at some point in the week, which I think is massive.
And that understanding of role within that environment and is absolutely crucial. So, and you were doing this at the same time as you were then coaching at Bolton, is that right?
Yeah. So it was funny. While I was at Bolton, I was doing some stuff at Crossfields and kind of working things from afar. But then Sam moved on, so a lot of the staff moved on, like happens in football clubs, and that's when I ended up at the FA. And that gave me a better chance. So I think it's all right. So the FA job was brilliant. So as part of and this is where I think you go back on, one thing I really enjoyed at Bobby Charlton's was developing the staff, and doing the staff training days. Really, really enjoyed that. And then, a key turning point was probably getting my A licence, so that enabled me to be an FA tutor. But really enjoyed the tutoring. So when my time at Bolton ran out, ended up doing a lot of itinerant tutoring for a year. And doing some stuff around MVQ in a college in Salford, which was enlightening, and probably the biggest challenge that I've had personally, about engaging people into work, and then coming and working at FA, and then doing the tutoring. So there was stuff going on there that all kind of linked together.
Yeah. What were the challenges that you faced at Salford?
Salford was having 12 lads who were probably towards the bottom of the pile in terms of their educational prowess, for want of a better word. Probably didn't want to be there. Saw football as a bit of or coaching was just seen as a way to keep them in the college for as best they could, whilst they were up to a load of other nonsense on the days they weren't in college. So just trying to engage them into being in a classroom environment, but then what I kind of figured. What I figured with those lads was they didn't want to be in the classroom, so we took them out. The lads went back to their own primary schools, asked if they could go back in and coach. We found a minibus at the school, so on a Thursday we'd go around various primary schools in Salford, they were doing coaching sessions with the kids. And the deal was they planned, they delivered, and they reviewed. All in the playground, in blocks, in pairs, sometimes on their own, different size groups. And the deal was if they locked onto the task, we dropped them off at the chippy at lunchtime. And to a man, they engaged really, really well. And one of my best moments, I always think, was two things that dropped out of it. One was on an afternoon session as a lad. The kids are all running around in circles, and then it looked like musical statues. And one of the things we said about trying to include the ball in the training. So walked over thinking, this ain't what we talked about before. And he was a human beatbox, and he was playing musical statues, and he was the beatbox and the music, which was just outstanding.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was outstanding. And these kids were all over it. So I walked away thinking, yeah, that's a lesson learnt for me. And then the balls, he said, I've got no footballs, I had to do something. So that was his solution, and it was class. And then I ended up doing, I'd asked to speak at Myers College to do some, just to do a one-off sort of lecture. And these lads at the start, you don't realise the impact you have on people. And I'd done for the first year with them, they'd got through the second year, got over the line. Ended up at Myers Co on a sort of foundation degree, delivering an afternoon. And lo and behold, 3 of the lads, including the human beatbox man, who was probably towards the bottom of the pile of the group, were on the course. And so you'd engage them in something and they'd kicked on to the next level. And that was, again, career highlight. Yeah, brilliant. I'd love to know what they're doing now. But real good bunch, challenging, but yeah, really, really good group. So, you know, it's just about hooking people in and finding out, actually giving them some sort of belief that they're good. And that education might not have been what they're all about, but actually this is something they could do and be quite proud about what they were doing.
Yeah. And so your journey at the FA started as a coach development manager for the Northwest, delivering predominantly youth award level 2 right around the Northwest. And then, so tell us how that journey's changed to the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah. It's interesting. So Chris Sully and had left us free rein really at Bolton to do a lot of take things where we wanted to go. So we'd kind of implemented like a 4v4. Martin Diggle in particular had implemented a 4v4, 5v5 model of small-sided games. So we'd had some research done by John Moores, and this was around about the time. So it was Professor Williams and
Mark Williams,
Mark Ford, Paul Ford, Mark Williams, and so Paul Ford was doing his masters and had done some study about, which a lot of people might have seen, around sort of training forms. So game day, you know, people playing games. Is it block practice? Is it skill practice? And he looked at. He asked us if he could come into Bolton. So we got him into Bolton. I'd also worked at Tranmere, got him to Tranmere, and he came looking at Crossfields. And he had, so they were 3 of his clubs at 3 different levels, and then he had, in total, he had 9 clubs, 3 at each level. So, and then the work that Paul came out was, well, actually, all the work that was taking place was unopposed, non-directional practice. And then he presented his information to us, and for me, it was a real penny dropping moment. Going, well, this can't be right. So when we had a look at why we were releasing players, and we were releasing them because we're making poor decisions in games. This is at the football club, and it was a critical. So Chris, Mark, and I, as a group, we decided, look, something's got to change. We've got to go away from what we were doing, which was lots of ladders, lots of no decision making work,
stuff that was popular at that moment.
Yeah, which is right, you know, and why was that driven? Because you went on a level 2 or you A for B and you delivered in a stop, stand still type way, which, look, and I think I'm going full circle to say, yeah, we still need that in coach education, but not necessarily in the coaching, because that might be what people need. But so we've ripped up the thing and went, yeah, we go with opposed, directional, small-sided games, because that's what education, that's what science was telling us. So we went down that route. Sturge had come on board right in the youth award, and Sturge came in to deliver that at Bolton, or towards our end of the time, and he came in to present what the Mod 1 was all about, just to the full-time staff to try and get us on board. Sturge lived quite locally, and Diggs pulled out our programme and the videos we were producing, and it matched up perfectly with the Mod 1. So for me, coming into the FA to share the messages around Mod 1 and Mod 2 is what we would been having a struggle over for 2 or 3 years at Bolton. Thinking, yeah, we need to do more post practice, we want to use games more, we want kids to value their own learning, to write their own session. They wrote their own sessions sometimes, their own performance reviews they did, their own goal setting they did. And we sort of facilitated that and took care and took care of the lads. So the youth awards were what we'd been living and breathing for 2 years, but having an absolute tussle internally about, was this the right thing? Because we didn't have anything to back it up. So when Pete started sharing that, it was like brilliant. And then to sort of left the club for whatever reason, and then to be able to get an opportunity to talk about the stuff that you'd been doing was like, it was brilliant. So yeah, someone sees a worth in what we're doing, and so it was an easy, for me, it was just what we'd done. So to have, and then Pete had given us the structure on the course to nail down those messages that we did in the club. So for 4 or 5 years, that's as a RCDM, that's kind of what I did, and hopefully made some sort of impact in the Northwest.
Absolutely.
At a time when the youth awards weren't particularly well thought of, and you were stood in front of groups that perhaps didn't want to be there, were a bit sceptical, so you had to win them over. But which is different now, totally different. And I think coach education was kind of split at the time, but it was an easy one to do. So. So that was the start of the FA, and Graham Keeley got us in at that point to work with the partially sighted team, and that was my involvement with futsal, but which again hadn't seen anything of. We went to my first, so nearly all my experience has been in international futsal, which is a bit weird, in European championships and world championships, or qualifying for Worlds and Euros, which is different than probably most people. That's not my football experience. And I guess it's not too many people's futsal experience, so it's a bit of a weird one. But saw the game, thought the game was good, but didn't understand it. Did not understand it. Could see that it was like football, but didn't understand the sort of finer detail of it by any stretch of the imagination. That's how I got into it.
Yeah.
It changed though. With the Premier League, I think the Premier League have been doing futsal for some time. In their games, so the Premier League are keen to offer a mixed games format. So if you're an under 11 player playing at Everton, then you will probably, in your games programme, you'll probably in a year play some 11v11 stuff. You will probably play 9v9, 7v7. You'll probably go to a 6v6 tournament on 3G. You'll play a 5v5 tournament in a cage, like at a goal centre. You'll play a futsal tournament. You will play 6v6 in Germany with big goals on a wooden court, playing off walls with a normal football, getting loads of different experience of competitiveness, trying to win tournaments, dealing with different balls and different situations and different numbers and different groups. So I think to support that, the FA needed someone that was going to go and talk a little bit about futsal, because to support the games programme Premier League had. So that's where the job came in, really. I think it was about the time when Dan Ashworth had just come in. I think the thought was around perhaps having like a skills coach, technician type person, but that wouldn't have been me. They'd seen some of the work that I'd done around the partials and presented at the Advanced Youth Award, and I thought they could see the technical group could see the links between futsal, working in a pro club, working in a grassroots game, understanding coach education. We probably need someone to knit that together, which is how the job probably rolled out, really. So that's how I ended up in the FAYCD team, and then was just given free rein to develop the sort of coach ed programme for futsal, which has been, but again, going back to where we started, linking that to the football strands, that actually it's not a million miles, can't be totally different, is people have got to see the synergy between the two.
Yeah, and so what's the impact that you're seeing now that you've been doing this role about, I think, 4 years, fair to say? What's the impact that you're seeing now that the clubs are adopting this varied games experience approach, and and just how important is that? Yeah,
it's changed full. So again, I think you got to be quite old, but you look back over time. So before the academy programme, kids were getting to 16, 17, playing on sand-based Astro, having broken backs and bad legs and bad hips, and you see the people that work in our department, there's a lot with having hip replacements. So they played hundreds, probably over 100 games a year. Everything was about games. I think back to me as a kid, I played 5 games a week. That's what you did. Never trained, but I really understood the game or playing in games. So having loads of games, when they brought out the chart for quality and the academy programme, when that first started, the games programme, it would be about 30 games max, 36 games max. It was but a really small amount of games. And then, but the problem being, actually that's that's not enough for decision making. So they were getting loads more training and they weren't getting the injuries. But now the kids, it had gone full tilt from playing 5 games a week to maybe getting 3/4 of a game. Now where the clubs have gone is they're recognising, well, actually we need lots of game opportunities. So that could be, and I think a lot of the Spanish, I know when Noddy went over to Valencia, wherever, he talks about lads going into battle 120 times a year, putting the kit on, going and playing against somebody else. And I think there's massive power in that, because that's where you make your real decisions as a player, or even as a coach. I think just going toe-to-toe with somebody else, but understanding the returns you're getting from futsal or from the bigger game. I think the clubs now, loads of clubs will be going all over the world playing in tournaments and going into battle and trying to win those tournaments, and the kids love it. I think, and the coaches understand the returns they're getting from each one, and really, really get that. So it's probably the best place for people's learning. So I think that what's your, if you go and give us a football memory, it's probably, or gives you your best 3 football memories, straight away I'm going into moments in games, winning a semi-final, winning, getting into a final. I can think of some others that might have been away from the pitch, which is a bit more so, but probably, if it's top 3, 2 will be will be game related. I can't remember too many training sessions. I can't. So I think, and the clubs are recognising that. So northwest based, where I've had quite a bit of a hit with futsal. There's ad hoc games going and being played now between the clubs at different age groups, up to under 12s, under 13s. So Preston North End have a facility on a Saturday morning. Other clubs are rocking up. Blackpool use Myerscough on a Thursday night. They'll be playing Blackburn Rovers. They'll be playing Accrington, and they'll play it as a futsal game. And the kids go and play a proper game, and that's giving extra game time to players, and seeing players in different situations. Which, again, that's not been driven by, well, it has. It's been suggested that it might be a decent idea, but it's just supporting clubs to go and do that.
And that's starting to filter down into grassroots now. I know that the lads that I coach, our 14s, we have been training on I call it an ice rink. It's a sand-based Astro, which is on its last of last legs. Yeah. It is the quickest surface I've ever experienced in my life. And I don't care how good a player you are, you're going to struggle to control a football playing on that surface. So we've been training with a mixture of footballs and futsal balls for years on there now. One of the most significant changes I've noticed, and I did measure this a few years ago, and I've got the results somewhere. I should have brought them with me. We tried to track the time that the ball spent in play. Okay. So we had a third of an Astro, 2 goals, and we just played 5v5. We played it one game, I think it was about 20 minutes with a football, size 4 football, and then another game after that, after a rest, another 20 minutes with a futsal. And I think, this is just surmising, but I think it was the ball was in play for around 33% longer. Yeah, I can imagine. So just a return on investment, just by changing the equipment over was great, but they'd never actually experienced playing a futsal fixture, a proper match. Okay. And we got invited to go and play Liverpool Futsal Club. They've got a little youth set up going there. This was just before Christmas. And the lads, I think we had about eight boys there, and they absolutely loved it. The first question was, when can we do this again? Yeah. And it was just in a bog standard high school sports hall on a netball court, with the goals were these like pop up, just material goals. I've never seen them before, but they were great. And I expected just a kind of, I didn't expect the response that I got from the boys, and they really wanted to get more into it and play more. Yeah,
I think, again, it's understanding the returns. So I think if you're my lad plays Super League, and my mother-in-law took her to see a game, and straight away she says, "Oh, there's a lot more shots in this, isn't there?" And I says, "Yeah." She says, "It's always around the goal. There's always something happening. I can't take my eyes off it." And my mother-in-law's had a chance to go and watch loads of football, but turned down the opportunity because it was cold, it was wet. But I don't think there's an awful lot happens in the game. It's really, really slow. She went to see this game and was absolutely loved it, to the point of about 2 weeks later we went round for Tom got a game. The games are on Sunday. We're having Sunday lunch, so we had to have Sunday lunch because his game's at 5 o'clock or at 4 o'clock. So he has his dinner, scoots off to go and play down at Tranmere. We've washed up, and then I'm thinking I would really like now. It's an hour before kick-off. If I set off now, I could go, but I've just had Sunday lunch. It'd be the wrong thing to do. We've washed up. We've had a cup of tea. It's ready for it. It's walk the dog or have a snooze. And to which my mother-in-law came in and said, "Oh, what time's kick-off?" I said, "Well, it's in an hour." She said, "Oh, we could make it, couldn't we?" Which I thought I would never have got that. I would never have got that response from football, because let's go and watch. And it's the point is it's about it being more exciting and more going on and more goals, more action. And I think that's why so if it's good enough for my mother-in-law, there's got to be something in it for the kids. I think if there's the other bit of learning I had with taking so I've run the town team group that I had, there was usual stuff. Some really good lads, some parents were a little bit of a challenge. Everyone was on board by the end, but it had been a bit of a challenge. Some that challenged me most, really good people, but when you stick them around as football supporters watching their kids play, just got a little bit too lively. Stick them in a futsal hall because they don't understand the game. It was really, really good because they didn't understand the game, so actually they kept their mouth shut. And just one of the dads his son was a goalie, and he went, "This is really good. My lad's involved in it loads of the time." And so I think sometimes you can, you noisy parents, you can that might be the reason why the kids have a better experience, because the parents aren't on the case and don't know everything about it, and perhaps just let the lads get on and do what they need to do.
So would you class it as a sport in itself, or how do you see the game of futsal?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, as a development tool, I think it's fairly. I think we've got to, the returns you're getting from it are really going to help develop footballers. So, is it a coincidence that the leading futsal nations are Brazil and Argentina and Spain and Aguero and Silva and Coutinho and Neymar? All the real big hitters have been born and bred on this. We went to Barcelona in October, and I said, we're asking the futsal people in the club about, have you got any evidence about the transfer? And they kind of looked at us, well, one laughed at me, one of the coaches laughed. The second one just looked at me like I was stupid, and pretty much the response was, "Have you never seen a game?" I said, "Yeah, well, I've seen quite a few games, thank you. I know, I just need to share some, I need evidence to take back to England." And they went, "We'll just get people to see the game at the top level, and if they can't work it out, well, they shouldn't really be coaching." That was kind of their point of view, which, yeah, I can't really take that message back, lads. We need to, but that's how they were. They knew. So as a development tool for football, I think it's huge. As a game in its own right, I think there's real growing momentum. And there's a growing momentum now of English kids playing. So in the main, the National League before, there's been a lot of foreign players. Now what we're finding is a lot of the teams are young English players, which is going to help the England team moving forward. There's a real movement of there's not an underground movement, but there's a subculture of futsal that goes off, and there's more of it going on than the football community realises. And the quality of it is some of it is really, really good that people need to see. What's turned as well, like the Bolton Berry League shutting down and now pretty much from November till Feb, and just going outside and doing futsal. Major step forward, because I'm sure there's teams that will have had games cancelled now for 2 or 3 months and won't have played on grass for ages.
Yeah, we've played 2 games in 14 weeks, I think.
Yeah. And this is a point. That'll be this year. It'll be last year. It'll be the year before. It's every year now. So let's not kid ourselves. So if it's seen as if just the fact that kids are playing and getting another hit in the winter, that's got to be a major step forwards.
And one of my own first experiences of being introduced to it in that sort of environment was a league that has been running for a few years now here in Liverpool in Wavertree. In the tennis centre.
Yeah.
So Ricky and his team had seen an opportunity to work with the tennis centre, which perhaps wasn't busy every night of the week.
Yeah.
Got some really faint markings painted on the courts, and there's I think there's eight pitches in there, Monday and Friday night, and the number of games is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I just think that if we, those guys have really thought creatively about how to make it work and not to let facility constraints get in the way. And I think that that model was, other people started to look at that around the country. The opportunities for young players to be exposed to this game would just go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes back a lot is about facilities, and the lack of facilities and the cost of facilities, and a kind of the research that we've got back is that there isn't a shortage of facilities. What there's a shortage of is those facilities being unlocked, and that's something that's totally different. So schools not opening the sports halls on an evening, that would solve some of the problem, and there's a lot of that about. The cost thing, so in Spain, where do they play? They play outside on school playgrounds. So you could argue about the rain. I'm not convinced it rains as much. There's a difference between a waterlogged pitch and it actually raining. So I think we can have a waterlogged pitch, but it's not raining. So playing on the schoolyard, I think, is viable. So if you've got a set of samba goals, if your kid goes to a primary school and they've got a netball court marked out on the playground, you've got everything you need to play. All you need then is a ball, which is going to cost you a tenner. Then comes the health and safety. Well, if you're my vintage, you went to school, you played on the yard, you went there early, you played at lunchtime, or you played in the street and you played with flat-soled shoes so you could look after the ball. The ball was slightly smaller and you narrowed off the goals because you didn't want to go booting it for miles and then you ended up chasing it for ages. So you made it a little bit easier for the keeper. That's what we had it. We had the model and the facilities we have got. So every school will have tennis court or a netball court, guaranteed. So there's a load of pitches. The sun's out all summer. Once we get to probably about March, there's enough daylight that we can get loads of hits. The other thing that people probably don't realise, if the amount of play areas that have got concrete courts with metal goals all set ready to play is incredible. Do I see many kids on them? Absolutely not. Have I ever seen a competitive game on them? Absolutely not. Never in my life yet. And I think that's part of the plan to get things out there.
Are these like the little multi-use game areas?
Yeah, multi-use game areas. Why can't we go and play on there? There's we're looking in Warrington. I think we've got 3 or 4 floodlit ones as well. So there's your win. No cost. If you want to go and use those facilities in the winter when it's dark, you get a licence off the council, and you can get access to that court from 6 to 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night if you've got the licence and boots people off. That's the case in a lot of councils across the country. Is it well known? Not at all. And they're floodlit, and there'll be heaps of those places. Start looking out for the floodlights. Not on every court, but you can get the licence to gain access to that place. Really? That's what you pay your council tax for.
So there you go. Yeah,
there you go. It's free, and this is the thing. So I think there's been a bit of snobbery in the past from the futsal community, saying, well, what about if it's on 3G? There's a trade-off. So, if we're going to say, let's understand we lose the ball speed on 3G massively. But if you're playing to goals with the ball, play to the rules and play to lines, well, actually, you've got the game. So go and play the game. You'll still get 85-90% of the returns that you would get than playing on. So I'd rather take 85-90% than not play the game and the kids not have a go at something.
Yeah, I suppose that the decent was it the decent method you follow is better than the perfect one that you quit? Or you don't even attempt. Yeah,
exactly. So if we get players playing, and that needn't cost an awful lot. A third of an AstroTurf pitch, you could have 3, maybe 4 pitches on it, 30 quid, 10 quid. You're talking about 50p a head, not even that. So I think that there's a massive place for it, but we've just got to understand what we're getting from when we do stuff.
You talked about those links into the 11v11 game. What are some of the things that you're seeing in the way that different countries play the game, and what's that technical detail that you see is translating into
football?
Yeah.
I don't know. You go and see. You play different nations, and they play differently. You'll play. You look at how Ukraine will play, very regimented, strict plan, repetitive. Nearly, not automatic's the wrong word, but they play in a particular way, and it's about getting shots off and smashing it really hard, but having clear set pieces and being quite aggressive how they do it. Again, you look at, if you're looking at, I think the biggest thing at the minute is watching seeing City, and
no bias there.
No bias whatsoever. It's funny because, look, I've seen City when they're really, really bad. York away probably wasn't the best moment, but there you go. But what's going on at City is incredible, and I do get the chance to watch them from time to time. Or if seeing it live again is different than seeing it on the telly. But I am seeing with my futsal head on, I am seeing some of the way they deal with the ball, the way some of the sort of set moves within the game that pop out seem to be real.
What would they be?
So there's kind of a thing we use in futsal, like 3 in line. So the old York and Cole through the legs and spin, that sort of thing. But you'll see sort of Aguero taking a position behind Silva, and in between, Silva gets between Fernandinho and Aguero, and he might Silva and De Bruyne receive with the back to goal loads on the safe side. The receiving safe side, and literally it's a lending pass back, but then it's a lending back pass and then he spin and then it goes into Aguero and he bounce around players. So when it's dealing with that really, really tight area, that's one way of getting out. Seeing Sterling this year down the right hand side, he's getting on the shoulder really, really high, and Walker's got a run where he just pretty much dives through, but then De Bruyne will come and fill space. So like we have so 3 in line and like a filling out space. So De Bruyne come and fill in the space that Walker's left.
So like a rotation almost.
Some of the rotations, but the kind of standard fare in futsal, but people are raving about it in football. But done at pace, done with quality, and getting away to unlock situations. Just create the concept was about creating those little overloads in attacking areas where you kind of creating overloads in an underloaded situation. So you've got to do, if you're attacking, I don't know, Southampton being an example, when you rock up at the Etihad, stick 10 behind the ball, you're going to commit 8 forward to that. So you're into probably an 8v10, 8v11 situation. Yeah. Well, within that 8v10, you've got to create a 3v2 overload or a 2v1 for a second to get you in. And that's futsal. That is futsal. Can you create an overload for a second, and then can you exploit the opportunity that comes along? And I'm seeing that heaps and heaps. Never mind, the technicality of Coutinho and him going to Barcelona for however much he went for. Well, actually, there's probably stuff that he's picked up in the game in terms of how he receives and his decision making under pressure. And
I saw some brilliant footage of him, and I don't know if it's publicly available. It might be on YouTube. I suspect it probably will be these days. But of his early experiences, I think he was around about 14 playing futsal. Now we see Coutinho and just assume that he's probably always been the smallest.
Yeah.
But actually, he was a giant compared to the rest of the players. And I don't know if probably worth a search on YouTube for that. Worth
a search. It's worth a search, 100%. And then Liverpool put something together. The football club, their analysis department of him doing his futsal and then him doing the same moves in 11v11. I don't think that is out on YouTube.
No, that's the clip I've seen.
And it's just how he holds the ball up, how he turns, and it's identical. So there's. I don't think it's rocket science, but it's quite different because understanding again that he's protected by the rules, that he's not going to get smashed every time the ball comes into his feet. So he does get a chance to practice those things when he was younger.
Yeah.
The other thing from the clips was, which again, there were super competitive environments that he was playing in. the stories we hear from Brazil is that there's money changing hands on games at 9, 10 and 11. So, you know, for the
favelas,
elite, in the elite game,
right.
And those, or at the top levels of 9-year-old futsal in Brazil, there's money riding on games. So imagine the pressure on the players. Now, I'm not saying for one instance that we start gambling on kids
on the Warrington Junior League under 8s.
Probably won't get away with that, no. But the kids dealing with pressure. So then, is it any surprise then that they can deal with pressure later on in life? And we come back to that drive that we talked about, the dancers, about getting out and going and playing. Well, yeah, there's probably something going on there that's not technical, that's giving them another edge. And in Brazil, they're probably not playing on sports halls. They'll be just playing on any patchy ground, so they're dealing with bumpy balls and all the rest of it.
So the Euros start next week.
Yeah.
Eurosport again?
No, unfortunately not. So we're going to have to get some links out around streaming.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a real shame, because that has given us momentum, unless there's a late deal, which wouldn't be surprising if something happens.
Potentially on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, UEFA might stream stuff, which would be pretty good. But people really caught into the last one, which is a terrible shit. I think the later games might be on, but the group game's not. It's in Slovenia. Big hitters, probably Spain.
Who are you looking forward to seeing?
Looking forward, different teams for different reasons. Spain, always good. Italy will play a different style. Russia will play off a top man. I think the interesting one will be France. So they've pretty much come from nowhere. They've decent. If people are interested, there's a pro concrete football which is out on Netflix, or you can get it on YouTube. Decent little watch about sort of them playing again in the playground environment. And there's a couple of players that's come literally off the streets and will be playing for France.
So that's a documentary, is it?
It's a documentary.
Yeah.
It's about 45 minutes,
right.
But it's well worth a look. It's a bit brutal, some of it, and there's a bit of a real city vibe culture thing going off, but it's worth a watch. And so seeing how the French lads cope out there will be, because they I don't think they'll win it. We've also got the conference coming up, so George Baratz is with Portugal. So we've got him in the conference as soon as the Euros finishes. That's at SGP on the 17th of Feb.
Okay. And is that so? Just
to see George.
Tickets available for that? Just online?
No, tickets are. I mean, and again, we've got with George is over, and Mark Kamara from Carmona, from who was at Barcelona's head coach for ages. He's presenting there as well. So we've got big hitters there. But it's just, I think the thing from the Euros is just to see the quality of the play. Is just outstanding. The pace of the game and the quality about how people will manipulate and deal with the ball. It's just on another level.
Yeah,
the level of pressure that people can apply is incredible.
And one of the things I like most about watching it, I find it a really entertaining sport, not only to play but to watch, but is the fact that you can see so much of the pitch. I get really frustrated when I watch football, 11-a-side football on the TV, and obviously you get drawn to the ball because the camera naturally follows the ball. Sky sometimes do the tactical cam, which I love watching the games off that. But with the futsal, at least you can see pretty much everything that's going on and the movement off the ball, which I really enjoy watching. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Look away from the ball and see some of the clever stuff that's going off. That some of the blocking that will be going. That's one thing we want to see. So we're over for a week just to kind of get what we can from it, and hopefully implement some of that into the coach head that we're pulling together, and then hopefully benefit sort of the England team as well.
Right. Okay, we're just kind of drawing to a close. I know you've got to go to the dentist.
Oh no, lucky me.
We've got a question from Ian off Twitter, which he asks about where do you see futsal in 10 years' time, and what impact do you think this will have on the game across grassroots and elite football?
Yeah, the momentum it's growing at the minute is incredible. I'd hope in 10 years' time it becomes the norm that grassroots teams are playing it on a weekly basis, and it's an addition to it. It will never replace. It's not a challenge to football. It's not, but I think it should be part of us that we're playing, a five-a-side version, and that becomes the norm for people. but using the ball and playing to the goals. And the dropout will be that technically we'll produce some players that will be better decision makers on the ball when they come to play football. I think that's one thing. Do I suspect that we'll see more leagues? Yeah. Why? So if junior leagues can sort of see the benefit of it and think, well, yeah, players will love playing it, they'll come back for more, that'll help reduce dropout. So I think we'll see more specific futsal leagues. I think we'll see more specific coaches that have got a real knowledge of futsal. And I think they'll come from football. I think it'll be football coaches getting another string to the bow. I think, and there's no harm in being a futsal specialist, but there is going to be a need for futsal specialist coaches. And there's, be proud of that and really get the technical detail of the game to share with other people. But do I see it as on TV every week? I'm not so sure, but I'm not sure TV's the answer. I think there's, with streaming, so all the National League games will be streamed probably from next season. Streaming probably is the way. The real thing in its advantage is that there's sort of, because of all the goals, kids love it, so there's more goal action and more clips. So that'd be good. I think the women's game's going to grow. The national women's team will be in place. I think it'll be firmly embedded within the boys and girls elite programs, because it's kind of been around the Premier League now for 6-7 years. So it's not going to go away. And then I think the real thing that I would like is just seeing kids playing on these park areas. If we got some of that would, again, and going away from structured stuff to kids just playing, because that just seems like a massive opportunity that we're not taking at the moment.
Great stuff. Just going to finish off with some of the regular questions that we're trying to ask everyone who comes on the show. What would be over your career, what would you say has been the best investment that you've made in yourself as a coach?
Yeah, but best investment's probably time in myself. And sort of being around other, sometimes like-minded people, but other people, spending the time with other people that are willing to share ideas. I think that's the thing, and having people that you're willing to chat to, because that's where sometimes you've got an idea, you want to try it, and you just need a bit of help in understanding that's actually the right thing to do, and it's not formal. It's having a mate, having a buddy that you can chat through things with, and just spending that time chatting rather than beating your head against a brick wall thinking, this can't be right. We're actually, more often than not, it probably is. And then kind of having a go at stuff and having that investment in yourself to spend time doing it. Don't rush from this place to the next place to the other place, but go and have a go and start to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and I think that's the best thing you can do. And it's not. I think you have a stage where you've got to sort of, copycat's fine to get you going, but then invest in yourself to go, do you know what, I really need to work out what's going on here, and that's pretty key.
Yeah, and I suppose this next one links nicely into that. I think you alluded to it anyway, which would be, if you were to go back and see yourself starting out, what advice would you give to yourself starting out, both as a coach and then as a futsal coach?
Yeah, I think if I was starting out now, just go and do stuff, because I think when I start to look back, you get into things that you don't know why you're in them at the time, but actually they become really, really useful for you. So just go and try it. And then not beating yourself up ridiculously, but actually try and understand why you're doing what you're doing. It's like anything. You look back, you think, oh, cool, I did that. Well, actually, it's all right to go through that process of working out. So I think you can get so much from courses, you can get so much from chatting to other people, but then at some point you've got to go, I've got to go and get my hands dirty here and just try things. And that. But at the same time, the shortcut comes from the advice people give you. Critical.
So we've spoken before we hit record. You were saying about you've got yourself a mentor, Steve, down in Chester. So what's some of the best advice that he's given you?
You need different people in. So I think it's having like a committee of people around you, and that's been critical. So as I've gone on my futsal journey, so the last 3 or 4 years, I've had to go back, literally start from scratch and learn a new sport. That was kind of my decision I made, thinking I was listening to other people and they were talking another language, and they were seeing a lot more detail in the game than what I was doing. So to get over that hurdle, I'd got to get round good technicians to see what they were seeing and chat through what they were doing and chat with players and be around the best players and work through problems with people. So I think having a real technical person, that's one person. Steve Tones works with the Partials as is he psychologist? Is he lifestyle? Is he mentor? We go and walk and talk, and so in and out of competition. So tomorrow we will go for a walk by the river at Chester. We will go to the woods, which sounds a bit dodgy, but actually. No, and he's got the science behind it that if you sat opposite somebody, it's quite different than walking alongside them, and the conversation ebbs and flows, and it's an open book, and we talk a little bit about what I want to talk about, and we talk about what he wants to talk about, and you get stuff off your chest. And Steve's got, because again, he understands football. He would admit he's probably not a futsal technician. Understands the players that we work with. We talk about all sorts of stuff, so I think, and it's a chance to offload on someone. So having someone like that, again, quite different than if I'm having a conversation with Scoobs or with Mark Forrest about technical stuff related to the game. Then at the same time, from a coach ed perspective, there's other people in the team that I'd go to for advice around coach education, and that's a different. So you need the different people, and then I think you've also got to keep someone. So my wife's great because she goes, hey, you're losing the plot here. You're doing too much of this. You're not spending time doing that. And I know I've probably gone over the line in terms of either overcommitting to something, and she keeps me quite grounded in what I need to be doing. So you need a team around you to make sure that you're on the right track. I think if you have got a skills gap, you've got to go and find people that's going to help you with that skills gap. So Premier League and EPP talks about coach competencies. So being aware of what you're strong about, I think, is quite good. But then, if there's gaps that need filling, go and get the people around you that's going to help you, and that's just chatting to people and then thinking it through and trying to apply it.
Yeah, and sometimes we're not sure about our own gaps and our own blind spots because that's what they are. So having those critical friends around us becomes ever more important, I imagine.
Yeah, and they're quite. I think Steve's really clever because he never tells you, but you come out knowing full well what you've got to do next. And my dad was really good at that as well, and outstanding at it. And yes, if you've got people that's willing to, and I've still not cracked yet how he does what he does by telling you but not telling you. And he's got another knack of just appearing in tournament when you needed to have a chat with someone. He just kind of appears on your shoulder. But it's great. I mean, one story from him was, again, we get into the semi in Sardinia, and I'm thinking, flipping out, we've drawn this game, we've not really ripped the world apart. Are we doing the right thing? And he just went, no, you've got a semi-final this afternoon, stop being stupid. That was the, get out the group, win your quarter, win your semi. Let's be real about this. And great advice just from, stick to your plan. It's working. The lads are right. They're fit. You're going to be super strong. And it's just having that other perspective on things.
Yeah. What have you seen, read, or heard recently that has had an impact on your own way of thinking or coaching?
I think, the City thing's interesting. I see them a lot, and I think. We talked a little bit about that, about the linkage. I'm seeing the more I'm seeing City, the more that's. So if I have a question, is futsal the right thing for football? That's sort of backing up that thinking, and and the Barcelona message that, you know, just come and see the game and understand the game. I think that's critical. I get a little bit confused about with technology. I think that's my beef at the moment, about whether it's good or bad. Is there too much? I think it, and the jury's out. I'm thinking about my journey. I came on my bike this morning, and so my sat nav's guiding me. And it's funny, you look at the so I thought I kind of knew. I've been here in the car, and I don't know which direction, but in the car's different than on your bike.
Yeah, you're not going to ride your bike down the M62.
It wasn't really happening. So there was going to have to be. So initially, it's wanted to send me down the cycle track, the Pennine Trail, which I know is shut because of some bridge building work. So again, so it was going to send me on a bum steer straight away. So again, do you trust the technology? Do you not? The route it's took me is the most direct route. I've come through council estates, down footpaths. It has took me an absolute way that I would no chance. I would not have known which way to come. Had I not had it in my ear telling me which way to go, you know, 200 yards, you're going to do a left or a right. So I've seen some places that I would not have seen. So in that respect, it's good. Could I take myself back that route? No. So again, that worries me, because if I'd worked out myself, I'd have been able to get myself back to the dentist. But I don't know now. So I'm going to have to rely on it to get me back. So again, in my learning, that's kind of a little bit odd. Would I have got here as quick? Probably not. But I'd probably have a better idea where my route was. It's that whole thing, if you've got someone telling you and shaping you. My phone did say I was going to get soaking wet, going there and coming back.
Looks all right to me.
Still dry.
Yep.
So that was rock. So it's given me. There's a balance, isn't there, about enough information, what information you're taking in. There is so much information out there. It's a problem. And I'm coming down a track. There's a school in Widnes where I've come past today, and the kid, there's a path, and they're all coming to school in the opposite direction. I'm riding my bike. Probably 50% of the kids had their heads looking at the phones, and I'm thinking, are they missing what's going on here? Because they're missing that. The other 50% probably often try to nudge the mate to knock me off my bike, but that's another story. But I guess that's fair play in Widnes. But I do think, are they missing what's going on around them? You know, yeah, by all means, use the technology to shortcut and help, but then what information are you taking out of stuff? You know, so Prozone gives you, I don't know, a 50-page book, but actually what you're going to take out of it to make your team better. I don't know, does it give us 1%? Do the 1% matter when actually we've still not got the 40% right? I'm really confused by it all. Yeah. And I think we just have to be really clear about the one thing about me sat nav that was good. I knew the end point where I wanted to get this morning. I knew I had to get to your house.
Yeah.
So actually, it's helped me get to your house, but I knew where I wanted to go. If I'd have just put in Jack in Liverpool, it wouldn't have been any help anyway.
It might find it that one day though, won't it? The way it's going.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be riding my bike. Yeah. It's you know. So I think if you've got a clear plan in what but how do you get that clear plan? You know, I knew that I had to get to yours, and it's that. So the technology thing, the jury's really out on me, and I'm seeing it all the time that we're sometimes getting a bit bamboozled by it.
One of our former colleagues, Tessa Payne, showed me a quote that ironically did the rounds on Twitter, and it was from an account called Blunt Educator, which is worth a follow. And it said, technology is a beautiful thing, but if you can't teach without it, then you shouldn't be teaching with it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's understanding, you know, you said that you knew where you wanted to get to, so if you've got that plan in mind, and then going, well, how am I going to use technology to help me, rather than starting with the technology to fix it's putting the cart before the horse, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or the other way around. Yeah. I know what it meant in my head. And you mentioned, so that was something we talked about before that you'd changed your mind about, and then you mentioned about you'd seen a documentary recently. Was it on Churchill?
Yeah, no, it was the film that's out there, the Longest Day, or
that's right,
whatever it's called. I saw that on Saturday night, and he's part of his thing was he needed to understand about. I think there's that sort of really set a scene in about being English. Real big history lesson for me. It was really good. So he there was a chance of my history of the Second World War was poor, but he was saying that, you know, they were trying to forge a peace deal with the Germans, that that part of the government wanted to do. Churchill wasn't quite sure about that, so he went out to the public and asked them what he thought. And to a man, they were like, "No, we'll fight with pitchforks. We'll let them come over." You know, kids, women were all saying, "No, let's fight, let's fight, let's fight." And I think that's part of our mentality about being English, about not that we want to fight everybody, but actually, you know, understand what we're about, understand what our culture's about, and there's nothing wrong with that. And take that with us. So being organised, being ready to go toe to toe, I think is a good thing, and being really resilient in what we do. That's messages that comes through loud and clear with, and just finding a way to get over the line, which is, I guess, is what Churchill did. And he had some tough decisions to make, but he got over the line. And it's the same with England teams. We've got to do exactly the same.
I think that's a great point to end it on. Ian, thanks very much for this. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to your experiences with the national teams, and I'm sure that they'll get a great response. If people want to connect with you more or find more about what you're up to, Ian B Futsal, is it?
Yeah, Ian B Futsal on Twitter.
Yeah.
Email's always good.
Yeah.
Ian.Bateman@thefa.com. Yeah, if people are with futsal, it's a small community, or smallish community, but I think it's a real growing community. But it's a real open and group of people that want to make things better. So get in contact.
Yeah.
We're here to help.
And we'll certainly be doing this again, because we've made that many notes and we've probably covered about half of what we intended to. So
brilliant,
great stuff. Cheers, Ian. Thanks very much.
Hope you enjoyed listening.
Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please help spread the word or leave us a review on iTunes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. You can reach me on Twitter @JackWalton1, and don't forget to follow Liverpool FA @Liverpool_CFA. See you next time.
It's a different culture. It's a different environment.
Yeah. Well, this is a first.
There's somebody at the door.
Hi, mate. You alright? Is it not going to be too loud, is it? Recording something?
No, how long are you going to be?
About best part of an hour. Jeff next door.
Hi, Jeff.